The spread in this game was 13.5. Panthers were getting 13.5. Disrespectful. Did they not watch the PFF show last week? Bryce Young.
They haven't watched Bryce Young for the last month.
Bryce Young, most big-time throws in the NFL in the 2 weeks prior going into this. 13.5, come on, it's disrespectful. 22-16 is the final score. The Eagles do win this game, as we thought that they were going to, but obviously closer than what a lot of people thought that it was going to be. When you look at the top 5 graded players for the Philadelphia Eagles, Mekhi Becton at the very top of the list with an 88.2. Safety C.J. Gardner-Johnson with an 82.8. Lane Johnson, 81.2. Guard Landon Dickerson, an 81.1. And then linebacker Zach Baum with an 80.0. Jalen Hurts in this one, a 72.2 overall grade. On the other side of things for Carolina, wide receiver Adam Thielen with an 88.2. Offensive tackle Taylor Moton with a 79.2. Guard Robert Hunt, a 76.4. Offensive tackle Ike Ekwonu with a 71.9. Guard Damian Lewis, 69.1. And then Bryce Young in this game, a 63.4. Stat told the story, Dalton.
Okay, so there was obviously a lot of post-game noise about the passing game and some things A.J. Brown said after the game and where we're at with this Eagles passing game. And I think we need to go kind of broad on the scope here with the Eagles. Yes, it was a tight game. Bryce Young darn near beat him. You were maybe a drop away from actually losing this game. But let's talk about Jalen Hurts. All right, 63.1 passing grade in this game. Only completed 2 passes beyond 10 air yards. All right,
lowest average depth of target of the season for him.
Lowest average depth of target. I want to get into something too, because when you have such a heavy running team, the best thing you can do is mix things up on first down. Okay, when everybody thinks the run is coming, right? Mm-hmm. In this game on first down, a 1.5 yard average depth of target.
So they did pass, but they passed as an extension of the run game.
Only the RPOs and stuff, right? And I also don't find it a coincidence that all of a sudden the passing game struggles even more when Dallas Goedert goes on IR. Because there's a lot of things in the middle of the field and even in the RPO game, the way they run it, where Dallas Goedert's a really important part. And there's been times in the past where he's not on the field. Even though we know Brown and Smith are 1-2 on the outside, Goddard's a key piece for them schematically when it comes to balancing this sort of thing out. But either way, you have to find a way to survive. You can't look like this. The weird thing in the NFC for me, in a broad scope, is that the 2 best teams, obviously Detroit and Philly, are teams that look better the more that they hide their quarterback. We've seen this. The Eagles, since their bye week, since week 5 now, they run it somewhere between 57 and 59% of the time. An increase over their first 4 games that hovered around 40%, right around the league average. These are 2 teams that look better with the offensive line going, with the run game going, with some play action going, maybe an occasional shot, but not a whole lot. I just have to wonder, with both of them, we can get into Detroit's conversation later, but with Philly, there's always a moment in the postseason when your quarterback has to carry you through it.
Yep.
Can Jalen do it? I know we saw him do it in the Super Bowl, and they wound up losing even though he played the game of his life. Mm-hmm. But we haven't seen it the last 2 years.
I think he's capable. We don't see it a lot.
We don't see it. We
don't see it a lot, and that
we really haven't seen it at all this year.
That makes, and to be fair to them, because what are they now? 11-2 on the season. Like, to be fair, what they're doing is very clearly working. They're running the offense through Saquon Barkley. They're letting Jalen Hurts sort of be an extension of the run game. He is an easy conversion on 3rd and short, 4th and short, and he's been completing a lot of deep passes to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. But there's not a lot of in-between, and I think that's what makes everybody nervous.
What is their pass? I need to know, what is their passing game outside of
3-pointers,
outside of RPO, and outside of
3-pointers,
outside of press man go balls?
That's it. No, that's it. But I hear that makes me nervous. But they're 11-2.
You have a team with this type of weaponry.
Yes,
that's running their offense the same way as Pittsburgh. That has nowhere near as close.
It's true, but they're just doing it a lot better.
Not through the air. They're not.
Not this.
Who looks better? Who looks better right now? Russ or Hurts?
Well, in the deep ball, Russ looks better.
Even in this game. I mean, you're playing Carolina. There's no. I mean, I'm just saying.
No, this was obviously not a good game for Hurts.
I'm curious. The NFC is going to get weird because I think the 2 quarterbacks playing the best and that I should say the quarterbacks that are playing the best in the NFC and being asked to do the most are Matt Stafford and Sam Darnold, and a little streaky, but guys like Baker Mayfield or Jaden Daniels, right? The Lions and Eagles look better when they hide their quarterbacks a bit. And I think it might even be more extreme at the moment with the Eagles. And I'd be worried about that. And I know they've got a very safe formula that's going to beat most teams with a dynamite offensive line and the best running back in football right now, and maybe the best defense in football right now, front to back. But eventually your quarterback has to be, at least for 1 or 2 games in the postseason, that guy. It's always the case. It's why the Niners couldn't win one so far with Jimmy G or with Brock Purdy. You need that, even if it's 1 or 2 drives or a quarter. You're going to need that. And they need more out of this passing game than they got in this game.
I don't doubt you. I don't discredit what you're saying. I'm trying to think of teams in the NFC that are legitimate, like 2 high safety main teams that can win enough up front to be good to slow Saquon Barkley down as well as cap off a lot of their deep passes. I think Detroit's one of them.
The Rams are going to try, but we saw them get run over once.
Right,
already.
but I don't have a ton of faith in them. Green Bay has the safeties to do it, but
is it more about getting ahead of them early? If you're the Rams against the Eagles, take the ball first, get ahead, and make Hurts beat.
Yeah, no, look, so that's why like I'm looking at teams that I'm wondering who would be really tough matchups and ones to, because I think Philadelphia's setup is, there's nothing foolproof in this league, but it's essentially foolproof against bad teams. Like Philly's floor is so high, they're just not going to lose to bad teams. The teams that I think could give them fits are specifically Green Bay and Detroit. Like I think that Green Bay, the way that Jordan Love has played this year since coming back and really being fully healthy. I know they played Green Bay earlier in the season, but Jordan Love gets hurt in that game. I think Green Bay and Detroit are the 2 offenses that I look at where last week I highlighted how good Green Bay was coming out of the gate. And the Packers and the Lions, 2 of the best offenses in the NFL at scoring in the first half. Both of those teams average more than 16 points a game in the first half, or at least they had when I looked at the stat 2 weeks ago.
There are 2 other guys I worry about. One is Brian Flores in Minnesota.
So Minnesota, I didn't know how hot they come out of the gate, but I think that doesn't Kevin O'Connell score a ton on opening drives?
They're a very good first half team.
So so I guess the 3 teams in the NFC North worry me with Philly.
And the other one,
what's the other one?
In the same vein of Brian Flores and blitzing a lot and giving you a lot of weird stuff, it's the team that has their number. It's Tampa. I know, look, Tampa's not supposed to be better than Philly, but the last 2 times they've played them, Todd Bowles has given Jalen Hurts absolute fits.
No, Bowles knows Hurts pretty well. He does.
This is the problem. And for as much as we've talked about the Bucs not being great in coverage and all that, when Philly sees him and he gets to the 0 blitzes and all the weird stuff against Jalen, they don't have a whole lot of answers. So if the Bucs, because you mentioned it, what is it you said about Todd Bowles one time? He will go out of his way more than anything to be the best run defense in the league, right?
Yeah, John Ledger was saying that to me one time. He's like, if Bowles was the number 1 run defense in the league and the number 32 pass defense, he might take it. Because of how much he likes to do it.
I think against Philadelphia, you would take it.
So
I think there are threats if they can't figure
North,
this out. There are many threats.
I think the 3 teams in the NFC North are legitimate threats for Philadelphia. I think if Philly has to go on a gauntlet where, let's say they don't get the number 1 seed, let's say they have to play wild card weekend, if they have to host against the Packers, and then the next week they have to host against the Vikings, and then the next week they have to go to Detroit, let's say Detroit gets the 1 seed.
It's rough.
I don't think they make it out of those 3 games. But if they play the Bucs in there, I think that's a wild card kind of a coin flip thing. But I think the Eagles, I would take the Eagles over any of the teams in the NFC West, including one that would make the wild card.
I think the Rams are the most.
I would take them over the Falcons, and I would take Philly over Washington.
Yeah, I'm in on that.
But the 3 NFC North teams do worry me because of how quickly they could score. And again, I agree. You can sort of put them in a situation where the script is not advantageous to you.
Yeah, and I just think if they don't get more out of it, it's hard to just go all the way through just running the ball. It's going to be tough.
All right, well, that was a fun little tangent of a conversation.
Anyway,
I actually enjoyed that. Eagles run game, that's the stat that told the story because, again, the floor of this team is so high. They did not play very well, but they still have Saquon Barkley. And it's like, you could look at this team, and it was funny. You know, Jordan Mailata was talking about how the team wasn't playing well after the game. A.J. Brown looked very pissed after the game. And it's like, y'all realize you won, right? It was kind of a little reminiscent of last year when the Eagles were 10-2, yet the vibes were horrendous for that team. Now, again, I don't think we're in the same place, but it's different when you have Saquon Barkley and when you go, okay, well, a bad day for us is still better than most teams in the NFL because we've got this guy. So Saquon needs, I think, over 120 yards per game over the next 4 weeks to break Eric Dickerson's record. That's a lot. That's a lot. I don't know if he's going to do it.
Next week's the big one.
Would love to see it. It'd be cool if we saw it. But most impressive for me, I'm going to go back to the linebackers for Philadelphia as well. Nakobe Dean didn't have as great a game. Nakobe Dean, 61.7 overall grade. But Zach Bond, just fantastic. 11 tackles in this game, 80.1 overall grade. And just think that duo is fantastic in the middle of that defense. And then I'll sort of wrap it up here by saying Xavier Legette is my most disappointing player in this game. 2 catches on 8 targets for 39 yards. He had that huge drop on the end that could have been a touchdown that won the game. I mean, dude, you get picked to catch that football. Like, you are picked to catch that football specifically, and that's a tough drop for him, especially when we saw him come up with big, leaping, spectacular catches when he was at South Carolina. 52.2 receiving grade in this game. But what about you? Most impressive, most disappointing?
I'll continue on with Legette there for you because I'm with you, and I think it might be a little bit in his head right now. It's been a frustrating watch with him because I do think he's really talented. I think he was the right pick, and they needed a guy who can get vertical, and I think it's just inconsistent with the separation, and he's had a drop in 4 straight games. So I think it might be a little bit in his head right now of like, you just relax, and he looks like a rookie who's going through it. It sucks to have that moment, obviously, that could have been a game winner, but you got to battle through it. Now you find out who he is. Most impressive, I'll tell you what, Mekhi Becton at right guard. You mentioned the run game and the offensive line. Just a people mover. I'll tell you what, all the scouting reports coming out of Louisville when the Jets drafted him, they were all correct. This is a massive people mover in the run game who is capable enough as a pass protector, and apparently he just needed to play guard. I mean, it's just ridiculous. You watch him, 9 positive run blocks in one game is terrific. Only 1 pressure allowed as a pass protector, 85.5 run blocking grade. I mean, you watch his tape. He might be one of the first offensive linemen this year where I've watched the tape from the sideline angle because I just want to see how far downfield he's mauling people. I'm talking 5, 7, 8 yards downfield. He's still on them, and he's getting pancakes. I mean, Becton on the inside, again, with Jason Kelsey retiring and they had to move Cam Jurgens over, all of a sudden the biggest hole was at right guard. No hole with that guy there. He's been one of the best guards in football, and he just fits everything this team wants to do. They have unlocked all of his talent, especially in the run game. He's a weapon. Usernamed
iComment4Algorithm on the YouTube chat, which
Perfect.
We love to see, pointed out some of the games that we actually have next week. Eagles-Steelers is one of those games, so we actually get to see that game. Bills-Lions is another one. Seahawks play the Packers, right? So we get a good look at 2 of the top teams who could be playoff teams there. So, man, the schedule next week has some heavy hitter games. The Rams play the Niners on Thursday night. I mean, it's just there's a lot of really good games that are going on next week.
Separation week, it sounds like.
A little bit for some of those top teams. Thanks for watching, everybody. Make sure you like and subscribe the video. And if you don't have a PFF Plus subscription, you can get one to see all the premium stats that we talked about here on the show, plus the expert betting and fantasy advice over at subscribe.pff.com. The description is also right below, so if you are not a PFF Plus subscriber, you can come one today.